Good morning to everybody. I am Alessandra Venturini, the holder of the Jean Monnet Chair on European Migration Study, hosted by the University of Torino and financed by the European Commission. I'm very glad, happy to start today the second lecture of the satellite seminar, Cultural Consumption of Cultural Goods as Driver of Migrant Integration. The acronym is Cocumint, and we are very honored that Michelangelo Pistoletto has accepted to deliver this lecture, and also very happy that Giuliana Setari, who is an international collectioner and she promoted the young artists around the world, but she's also the president of Città dell'Arte Pistoletto Foundation, has accepted to introduce Michelangelo Pistoletto. Giuliana Setari, to her the floor.
Good morning, Michelangelo. Good morning, Alessandra. Thank you for inviting me to introduce Michelangelo Pistoletto. Good morning, everyone. Michelangelo, you're invited to participate in this seminar as the bearer of art as a universal message. I think it is appropriate for the benefit of the young students who are following the seminar to retrace the steps of your journey as an artist, a journey which has been going on for decades. The fil rouge has been responsibility towards oneself, others, society. You have constantly had excellent insight into societal change. Tangible and recognizable change, involutions and evolutions that you anticipated and embodied in the process of artistic creation. Given that I'm so close to works of art, I myself feel that we are only their temporary custodians, as they belong to a much longer history than ours. The words diversity and integration have always been part of your vocabulary. Germano Celant, in the essay which appeared in the catalogue entitled Multiplication and Division of the Mirror for your exhibition at Pier in New York in 1988, speaks of your art as a multiplicity of approaches and processes of an identity based on diversity, the single and its double, the plus and the minus, the light and the dark, substance and its form. The matrix of your art is to be traced in the European culture, which conceives of identity as a set of fragments, a jumble of languages and cultures, traditions and histories and stories whose internal borders are unstable and open to any crossing. Likewise, your language as an artist is so inexhaustibly open that it ranges from painting to sculpture, from poetry to theatre, from music to performance, in a constant process of transformation and becoming. Having said that inclusion and integration are your keywords, I will try and define and summarize some stages in your path as an artist, which you yourself, Michelangelo, can tell us about. Firstly, the transition from the oil-painted canvas in the 60s to the mirror surface, from the self-portrait that isolates to the mirror that includes. Next, the opening of your studio in Turin to poets, intellectuals, and film directors, to the general public. And so, minus objects, the newspaper sphere, the zoo in the 70s, the street theatre in the 80s. Then, Città dell'Arte in 1998, of which I have the honor of being president. Your foundation, with its mission of placing art at the center of a responsible social transformation, its direct interaction with the various sectors of society, a laboratory, a school, a university of ideas, an academy, at the same time. Finally, the third paradise, whose image Alessandra has chosen for this seminar, a symbol of rebirth and becoming for a tired planet at risk, a symbol of unity and integration that has been differently reproduced in hundreds of places in the world, as far and high in space as in the International Space Station, a participatory project centered on art as a universal message.
This is my gold self-portrait from 1960. There is a clear reference here to the history of portrait painting. In ancient times, the icon consisted of a face painted on a golden background. However, in my self-portrait, the face is also entirely painted in gold, so my own features are not there at all. This conveyed my questions. Who am I in the universe, in history, in politics? Why do I exist? I was asking myself whether I could find the answers through art. Art provided me with the possibility to question and search my own identity. Afterwards, I gave the golden background a mirror effect and applied this technique all the way through to the reflecting surface of the steel sheet, polished into a mirror. In this mirror, I could see myself and also the portrait of the world, of everything that is inside the painting. This then is the inclusion. The world and I are inclusive, whereas the portraits of old stood alone. Here is how art became my contact element with the world, and from this moment on, my work has activated my participation in the world. This led to the oggetti in meno, the minor objects, from 1965 and 1966, a set of very different works, a sort of collective exhibition of myself for a range of works which show the quantity of possibilities inherent in human creativity. The diversity, the difference of the works becomes substantial. I am continuously different, and each work has the possibility to include the different languages of art, like music, poetry, theatre. Differences create connections. I then decided to open up my studio and invite anybody who wished to be connected. Musicians, other artists, actors, authors. Then we all went out of the studio together in a whole procession of differences. And because one of the oggetti in meno was the sfera, the sphere of newspapers, this particular piece was taken out and included in the procession, so it became dynamic, pushed and moved, even by the people who happened to be passing by. So the work enters the public sphere. So the work enters the public space, enters society and activates it. Come together, because in the theatre are the body, the man, the mores, the speech, space and time. So representation has left and come out of its designated places, so to speak, and gone into the street, the place where everybody meets. First steps came Città dell'Arte, which positioned itself as the place in which all the different sectors of the phenomenology of art are convened and expressed, as well as those of social, political, economic, and religious life, all of them mixed together. In Città dell'Arte, all the dimensions of knowledge are connected, and given its name, the citadel becomes the fortress where art is defended.
Città dell'Arte is the tangible implementation of Progetto Arte, spelled out in your 1994 manifesto and in the exhibition at the Pecci Museum in Prato. It is an original achievement, the product of your own constructive engagement, located in a former textile factory in Biella, an important place for your family and a collective past which has been brought back to life. Thanks to Città dell'Arte, Biella has been appointed a creative city by UNESCO. Its activities being named cultural baths. And indeed, visiting Città dell'Arte is like taking a bath in its cultural contents, the product of 20 years of teamwork. The coherent development of the work carried out there led to the creation of the symbol of the third paradise, whose viral dissemination includes the International Space Station. Italian astronaut Nespoli made sure your symbol would be there.
I created the symbol for interconnection, starting from the sign for infinity. I added a third circle to the two circles in the symbol, space, time, and in the center, the connecting creation, like the masculine and the feminine releasing a third being in the middle. Thus the positive and the negative poles attract each other and create energy. The connection of separate elements creates a new element. From the division of the infinite, a new existence arises. In the first circle, there is nature in its primordial state. In the second, mankind's artifice in technology. But in the third, nature and artifice come together to create a new stage, a new phase for humanity. Paradise in Persian means a protected garden. In the desert, round walls used to be built to keep out the wind, and this made it possible to work the soil inside. From the primary orchard, agriculture was started. That is, the faculty to use nature for the produce which was good for human beings. But then came the exploitation of resources, the poisoning of the earth. Today, therefore, we must protect the wall of our garden, the earth, the atmosphere which protects us. We are living today in a historic time which is decisive for the preservation of life. Art as a form of engagement points to a pathway which actualizes the capacity to create and convey together the whole world as community, to start the third phase in the life of humankind.
We chose the third paradise as symbol for our seminar because we deal with international migration of foreigners and their integration. And so we are dealing with we and the others. And there is the need to create a synthesis, to create a connection between these two worlds. It as an instrument very effective in creating connection between two worlds.
Worlds are different. Diversity is essential to create the new. Without differences, nothing happens. 1 + 1 is not only 2, it's also 3, because there is an active duality creating a third unit. We are in the middle.
Exactly. All integration policies fail to create a common knowledge. We have done a lot of study and the result is clear. A large responsibilities probably rely on the schools because school has lost the capacity to teach the culture. They only provide skill, ability to work, but the skill necessary are the capacity to understand the other. All this is the capacity that arts can enhance, arts activity, where emotion are involved and are able to create common knowledge.
Modern art has been crucial. It has revolutionized the concept of beauty, which was static up to then. Self-portraits were static. If you think of cubism, the multiplicity of fragments coming together in a painting, Picasso came to master the autonomy of breaking down, disintegrating, and then recombining and reforming the figure. Differentiating and then recombining is the invention of modern art. Without him, I would be nothing. The third paradise itself is always different, no matter where it is created. Everyone will add their own local element, whatever is specifically suited and necessary, into the workings of the connection.
Contemporary art is that, and the third paradise is in so many places. Contemporary art is new, and it is able to break through the old barrier, culture barrier.
The emotions, play. At school, children learn to play together.
The conflict and the capacity of the society to create balances, equilibrium between groups.
We live with conventions, which are useful to reach a reasonable amount of mutual understanding. Numbers and figures, hours and calendars. But we must be careful because conventions are not the truth. They are useful and practical, but they cannot replace the dynamic mold of the universe, where everything becomes modified, where multiplicity exists in unity and cannot be modified by conventions.
Conventions are functional, and this is important. I wonder if Giuliana Setare wishes to join these changes.
I would like to reiterate that mankind needs to reconsider the world using art as a key and using the message that schools can convey. I consider the work of Michelangelo Pistoletto as an act of faith.
We must believe together.
You professed and practiced your credo in a continuous, unstoppable passage from ignorance to growing cognition. You're showing us how you did it. You reveal how you learned from Picasso. It is so important for young people to capture your message because you were able to get to know yourself through the work of a maestro who came before you. You revealed the enigma of the work of art, which was discussed by Jan Vercroes, a Belgian artist you maybe know.
We need to believe. The enigma is formulated and exists in its duality, in the impossibility for it to be unveiled. The ultimate question is, why do I exist?
What sense does my passage on this earth make?
And the universe, its beginnings?
Thank you very much, Michelangelo. Now we have some questions from the floor. I know that Andrea Ricci has a question. Please, Andrea, take the floor.
Good morning. Firstly, I want to thank Michelangelo Pistoletto for this enlightening intervention. I begin from the representation of the third paradise you gave to do a brief observation, then I will proceed with the question. This seminar cycle could not have been better represented as by the narrative you proposed this morning about society, the human being, and nature. Namely, about the eternal investigation around something being in the middle, between two extremes, between two distinct realities conjugating in the center. My question arises from your narrative, which talks about the universe, art, culture, human being, and so on. I want to add to these a humble reflection about art. I think art as a powerful historical, social, human, political function. And you have been a master in observing and representing changes that have characterized European and Italian society of the last decades. Given that, my question is, what has been, in your opinion, the cause-effect ratio linking art and cultural diversity? I mean, do you think that has been the diversity to influence and shape artistic expression, or vice versa, that the art has been shaping and building the society in which the art has expressed itself? And the second question, almost childish, how do you imagine the third paradise? Thank you.
Diversity is everywhere. Our modern lifestyle, we have shaped it following the artificial rules that we ourselves wanted. But the lack of balance becomes manifest, just like our concept of morals lacks balance. Nazism was organized in a morally, politically, economically, and aesthetically perfect fashion. Everything was perfectly oiled and coherent. It was devastating. We must revise our conventional systems. When I presented the trinamic formula before the United Nations, an African journalist spoke up to say that the sum 1 + 1 is 3 will produce monsters. I reacted saying, let's put the monster on one side and virtue on the other, and together let's create a new reality, a new passage and equilibrium, a balancing out, a sharing. Art always moves the equilibria dynamically.
There is another question from the audience, please.
Oh, thank you for intervention. I worked for several years in an environmental group. So my question is, which one was Michelangelo's favorite kind of environmentalism?
The kind that springs from interaction. We need to work in schools, to take the internet to countries that are poor and isolated, subjugated.
So information, yes, information is very important, but the problem is the quality of information. We have too many information. The majority is not of good quality. Instead, art has a positive message. Information is without emotion, and instead is enabled to analyze the complexity, while art instead, in a simple or complex way, is able to transfer complexity.
You can call it complexity. And the key point is that aesthetics needs ethics. The artist's absolute freedom must turn into responsibility. Affirming freedom means taking responsibility. In the first paradise, there was lack of awareness. In the second, there was knowledge. Now, in the third, there must be responsibility.
This is not a small step.
Intimacy with art helps to take responsibility. When you acquire a work of art, you take responsibility for it.
Not everybody gets to be a champion, but everybody can learn to swim. It's something you can acquire.
Well, thank you very much to everybody, to the participants, in particular to Michelangelo Pistoletto for the enlightening information, communication that he has given to us. So I also want to thank all the participants, but also the technician, Giuliana Settari, for having organized this contact, and Elena Bignoli for the registration and so on. Thank you very much for everybody, and diffuse this video, which is very rich and important. Thank you very much to everybody.